Because of the following special broadcast, The Lucy Show and The Andy Griffith Show will not be presented this evening.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Hey, it's the guy from the Levi's commercial. It's Rob Liefeld. Good to see you, man.
Hey, Mr. John, how are you, buddy? Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime, Rob. You know that. And I'm always excited to talk to you. We're going to talk about Battered Blood, the latest Deadpool that drops tomorrow.
Yes.
I had the opportunity to I'm on Marvel's press list, so they gave me access. So here's one cover. I don't know if it's the cover.
That's the A cover. That's the it's funny nowadays when I ask my retailers because I remember I added covers to I forget which book in about a year ago, and I asked my retailer, and he's like, it won't make any difference. I only order the A cover now. He's like, I don't do variants. I only order the A cover. So that is your A cover. This book does have several variants, but that's the A cover.
I did grab at the end because they're at the back of the book.
Yeah.
So this is
Kyle Magoo. Yeah.
Thank you. Excellent.
Fantastic.
And then we got Dan Panosian, which is terrific.
Yes.
And then an alternate Rob cover, which is fantastic as well. And then it's kind of covered. Oh, there you go, Rob. Excellent. So that's there you go. Here, I'm going to zoom in, Rob.
Scotty Young.
Yeah, that's the one I wanted to say, Scotty. That's great.
Yeah. He's so great. I talked about it on my podcast today. I asked Scotty, I said, look, can we get Scotty to do a cover? Come on, it really mean the world to me. And I knew it. I was opening the boxes, and I knew before my wife said anything, she was going to say, oh my gosh, I want that. And I'm like, honey, we have 1,000 of them. You don't need but the box opens. She goes, oh my gosh, I love this. I want this one. I'm like, of course you do. It's a Scotty Young cover. Cute is everything in today's world. Cute and cuddly. And nobody does it better than Scotty.
In that first movie, especially during the credits,
yes,
it felt like, they did a little Scotty homage and everything with little Deadpool.
All those people were it was the tall, thin version. Everyone was really skinny and tall. Yes, that's my buddy. He's amazing. He did for both. He did for the both Deadpool movies. I'm not sure if he'll be back, but Justin Harder, he works in the ad agency. He knew Tim Miller, and Tim had him do all that. I see what you're saying. They're very much in the same realm. Scotty's are like little cute kid versions, and his are like tall, skinny. It's cool.
Absolutely, man. No, that's great. Rob, in general, because all of your art is so, filled with kinetic energy.
Thank you.
And I heard today's episode as well, and I heard you even say you made some allusion to animation. Like,
Yeah.
is that an area that you would like to get into, where you would provide the style guide for animation? I mean, especially coming off of Spider-Verse this weekend. I just think
it's not a place that I naturally, I don't normally like dwell on that. I mean, there's so many amazing, talented artists, but when I put my own, gosh, probably put $500,000 in the 90s into two different animated shorts. One I think is about 4 minutes long. One's like 60 seconds. And they were these really great artists from Warner Brothers. They wanted to start their own studio. Briefly, they were together, called Roustabout Studios. And I remember I jammed with them. A couple of those sequences in both the 4 minute short and the 60-second, I did the style guides for. I sat there with them on 2 weekends and just drew frame style guides. But I mean, I actually did like the Shaft who lifts his bow and fires it at you in this little. You can see these on YouTube.
Cool.
They're on YouTube. They've been on YouTube for years. They're like little Youngblood animation. I remember doing that and thinking, wow, this is a lot of work. It circles back to, I'm about the comic books. I producing a comic book page drains me enough as it is, because 37 years in, trying to still make pages that will jump off the page that aren't exactly an echo of something I've already done. That's draining me already, John. This old man is tired. So,
I know I got a couple of years on you, but I understand what you're saying, man.
Not many.
But honestly, I also think, that's one of the reasons why I talk, Rob, because truly I love on the podcast, Robservations, everybody. I love when you go back and read a Wizard article or a Comic Journal or Amazing Heroes. And we're in the same wheelhouse, man. I mean, like I said, close enough in age. And, especially as I was telling you, I love the spinner rack there in the background.
Thank you.
I mean, were you a 7-Eleven kid, or were you a local drugstore?
So I've talked about it ad nauseum. I feel like I even spared my wife a week ago. We were as close as you can possibly get. Like, naturally, we were at a restaurant that was just, if we had gone one city further, like about another 7-8 minute drive, and she would have done it. And she said, "I'll go with you," because it was time to take my yearly revisit of my childhood haunt. And so we now live like 4 or 5 cities away, but we have a restaurant we really like in Fullerton, California. And then that's not too far from Anaheim. And so that Four Corners growing up, it's the cross section of Magnolia and Broadway. And it had a liquor store, a 7-Eleven, a Stater Brothers, which is a grocery store that sold comic books, and a Pizza Hut, which is where we would have at least, like, that would be a big deal. I see people passing them out a lot now. Pizza Huts used to be restaurants that you sat and ordered like you would at one of your great Chicago pizzerias. But I mean, like out here in Southern California, you'd get a booth, you get a big pitcher of root beer, you'd get, you got a menu, and they'd bring your pizza to you. And it was honestly, everybody who was a kid in the 70s will tell you it was better pizza. They've done a great job of making these basically just takeout places all over Southern California now. But I can immediately just rattle off, boom, 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 comics I read at the Pizza Hut. But I bought them at either the liquor store or the 7-Eleven that were across from there. And here's the deal: walking distance, it was 4 blocks down for me. So I would just, once I got bitten by the bug, John, it was a daily, maybe every other day, certainly in the summer, a daily occurrence. And, you could find a quarter in the sofa. And my dad or mom would just be dropping change everywhere. And I'd be like, hey, 25 cents will give me a comic book. So, that was the great part of growing up in that age. 4 comics for $1. I was right there just when they went from 20 cents to 25 cents. So it went from 5 for $1 to 4 for $1, but still. And then I remember going 30 cents, 35, 40. I mean, you guys, your audience doesn't know, it was like a nickel a year there for a while. Right. So, but all the comics I love were the ones that I got at either the 7-Eleven or the liquor store. But as I've told people, the liquor store had the way better, the far superior selection. They had this spinner rack, one just like this, chock full of. And I try and tell people, like, you'd go and go, hey, they have champions number 7, 8, and 9, like, because these guys they weren't engaged in tearing the covers off and returning them. Like, they would just let them pile up. And then the big thing that they had that separated them, where I met so many of the giant treasury editions, Superman Muhammad Ali, I bought at the liquor store. The treasury editions, the magazines, the Marvel magazines.
Yes.
That was literally the only place that I could find those.
Wow.
And John, I'm 8, 9, 10, right? But it's
sure.
they are the drugs of my life to this day. My family has gotten used to the fact that I love them and I love comics, and don't make me choose. So,
I do. That's awesome, man. No, again, same experiences. It was an independent drugstore that had the spinner rack by me. I didn't have 7-Eleven near me, but yeah, you're right. But they did have the black and white magazines and the treasury editions. In fact, beyond the Spider-Man 67 cartoon.
Yeah.
I really wasn't a big Marvel guy until I saw the treasury editions, and I got the Fantastic Four one, I got the Avengers one, and the Captain America, the Bicentennial Jack Kirby treasury edition and stuff.
Oh, done. Yes.
And that's what sucked me in, man. Absolutely. So no, I'm with you. That's awesome. Let's talk about Bad or Blood, because I don't want to miss that.
Let's first just talk about what a kick-ass year 1976 was. Okay. Out here, people don't understand, like for you and me, like, remember the bicentennial was a big deal. The bicentennial, 1776 to 1976. And there is a giant, you can still see remnants of it. They call it in Southern California, they call it the Inland Empire, which is where Corona and Norco and Riverside, you have to kind of drive there to get to our mountain regions, which is Big Bear and Arrowhead.
Okay.
And there's a giant dam that you're going to pass. And on it, during this 1976, they did the guy with the flute and the
fife and drum,
the 76 players, whatever, the Revolutionary War guys. And that was just because that's the year that Superman, Spider-Man came out, and like you said, Jack, the Captain America Bicentennial Wars, Cap took over. I mean, people understand that they gave Jack Kirby Captain America back because it was the centennial, and he's Captain America. So, I read interviews with like Steve Englehart, who didn't want to give it up, but Marvel's like, hey, we're giving it back to the creator of Captain America. Like, just let it go. Release your hands. We're giving it back to Jack. So yeah, dude, sorry, I had to get my plug in for 1976. That 1976 is like a 1992 to the kids who loved our stuff. Like, it was such a kick-ass year. John Byrne really starts being felt at Marvel with his earliest stuff. Perez is doing the Fantastic Four. Great year. Anyway,
I'm with
Bad or Blood. Let's do Deadpool.
All right, excellent, man. No, but I'm so glad. And again, I expect a 1976 podcast.
Yeah,
so,
it's coming. Yeah. It's coming. Hey, thank you for plugging my podcast. Honestly, I don't plug it enough. Look, I'm Robservations on pretty much anywhere you get podcast, Apple, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio. But it's so funny, John. People always ask me. I've noticed it. It's like I'm now a dinosaur because you're doing YouTube, but I don't want to have a camera on me. Like you do a lot of interviews, and that's perfect. John, when I turn on that podcast, I have decided what the subject is generally 45 minutes, 30 minutes before, and I freeform it.
Yes, you do.
I don't want anyone seeing me trying to think, because me and this Yeti mic are having a fight for an hour and a half, because I'm like, I got to keep going. And I've got to keep these thoughts. It's literally a file cabinet in my head, and I don't need a camera on me, but I see all the big podcasts now have video, and people are like, you need to do video. I'll never listen to it unless you're on YouTube. And I'm like, well, I guess you're never going to listen to it.
No way, man. Again, listen, I like doing YouTube. I've been doing it since COVID. In fact, Rob, you were one of the guys very early on.
I loved it.
And I think it's the last time we talked
It is
online and everything. But no, the big engine is the audio. And listen, audio always has video beat, with the exception of visuals, like when we can show covers and interiors and things. But this is something you could do while you're cutting the grass, while you're doing your workout, while you're shopping.
Yeah.
And I am wall to wall when I'm not podcasting. I'm listening to several dozen podcasts, and no lie, man, including your own.
No, me too. I was listening to I was listening to a podcast. That's how I get through my deadlines now, because I don't like listening to the news anymore at all under any circumstances. And so I just listen to, podcasts are a great way to cultivate what you like and just listen, right?
So. Absolutely, man. All right, Bad or Blood.
Yeah.
The sequel to Bad Blood, of course. Yeah. And Rob, I read it last year in the 5 issues. I didn't realize it had come out pre-pandemic as a graphic novel. Or the 4 issues. And it's so it's nice that you're back in this storyline again. And we got Thumper back, and Cable and Wolverine, and then Shatterstar, and I'm
Shatterstorm.
Yeah. See, this is Rob. I'm sorry, buddy.
You're the best. You're the best, John. I love you, man. It's fun. It's fun. It's so easy. Like, I mean, my kids' names don't sound alike, but I mix them up all the time. Shatterstorm and Shatterstar are bound to get us tripped up. No, I'm thrilled to be able to revisit it. It's been a long time coming. The funny thing is, the entire first issue that you hold in your hands, or that you experienced, if you read it, whatever, is it was done in 2017. So was most of the second issue. And then I put it down because Marvel asked me to do Major X. And then the pandemic happened, and I ended up taking IDW up on their offer to do Snake Eyes. And then I came out of that, and it was Deadpool's 30th anniversary. And there was an X-Force kill shot. There was a Deadpool one shot. There's 30 covers that turned into like 36 covers. And then they literally came to me and they said, Rob, we have this plan. We want to take the original graphic novel that came out in 2017, and we're going to put that out as 5 separate issues. Then we're going to collect, but we want you to do new pages for every issue. So there'll be some new material. And I said, sure. And then we collected it in a very, very affordable trade paperback for Christmas last year. So 2022, December. I tell people all the time, I really love all the guys at Marvel. I've been working with them for really nonstop. This team, since I did the Deadpool core back in 2009, which was, I had been away for a few years. And then I did the Deadpool core, which had Lady Deadpool and Kidpool and Headpool, and it was crazy. But David Gabriel is a genius. He's a marketing maestro, and he and CB Cebulski came to me with this plan, and it's great. And now we have this follow-up. And the graphic novel, the original graphic novel, came out in 2017, and at $25 a pop, I thought, this may struggle to have an audience. It sold out, and it was number 1 for the month of May 2017, which I was shocked. Marvel called me, they told me this, I was shocked. And it was just, I don't think they expected it. I didn't expect it, but I immediately launched into with the understanding that I do a sequel, and I started this, but then again, it got put on the shelf. But I thought them releasing it last year as singles, I really started to read a lot of the reviews with issue 4 and 5. People kept sharing me links, and people really like, this is one of my favorite Deadpool stories. And I mean, I can, like, I'm not making this up. These reviews, shows like your own, people gave YouTube reviews, they gave written, and they were just like, we love this adventure, we love this relationship, we love how it ended up. And I'm like, wow, this really worked out. Splitting up and making it into single issues was a great way for Marvel to, put the line back in the water and get, fans who probably missed it 4 years ago. And so now we've got this follow-up. I love it. I'm literally having a blast. I was doing some of the final pages from issue 4 today, because this is a 5-issue, 5 chapters. And so issue 4 comes out in September. So we're putting the September issue to bed. And I mean, I can't wait to wrap it up, get it into everybody's hands, because it's like giving birth when you release a new book. All comic creators feel the same way. It's release day is a big deal. It's like an album drop. It's like a movie date. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get it out there. So I'm excited to talk it up on your show for sure.
My pleasure, man. You know, when I used to write boxing columns for Boxing Illustrated,
Yeah.
and I would see the new issue on the newsstand, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
The giddiness, the excitement of, hey, it's in there. Oh, this is great. I can't wait. That's awesome. Can't wait for people to see it. So that's great. Hey, everybody, you'll forgive me, but you know, I'm going to play the poverty card and say times are getting tough. So if you have a question or a comment for Rob, if you don't mind leaving a tip, even $1 is fine. It's at streamelements.com/wordballoon/tip. In the description for the episode here on YouTube, you can find the link there, but also here it's I'll put it right there. There it is, streamelements.com/wordballoon/tip. So, and Peter Beiser is very kind and started the ball running, and he says, Rob, thanks, Rob, for still being awesome. I see the poster behind you. Did you see Jedi in the theater for the 40th anniversary last month?
I would be lying to tell you by the time I got around to seeing it, it was gone. I even tried it. It's coming back to theaters in Southern California. There's 2 theaters that are going to have it in August, because I went on my app, Flickster, and I put it in, and but no, I mean, like, you know, and it's so funny because my wife and I stood in line in 1997 when they did the, 20th release. We went and saw all the new footage, and
sure.
And I think it's probably because we're by and large empty nesters now, and I need a kid to help me to nudge me. But hey, let me jump in here and look, you guys. Like when my family said, well, who are you talking to tonight? And a guy who I work with, and he was coming by to get books. I said, hey, I'm doing this live podcast at 7:00, so we have to wrap it up. And they're like, who are you doing this? I'm like, he's the godfather of podcasts. He is like, you're the Larry King of comic books. And that's how I tell people. So people contribute to this show. Please, if I can go on and give you a tip before this is done, I will go on. Please be generous with John. There's a guy on Twitter I follow, and he constantly says he shows really interesting like pop culture tidbits from the past. And he always says, hey, it's hard out here in the arts. Please, if you can be generous. So people, let's tip John. Okay. I'm so fortunate. I wish I would have known. I'd get on a tip right now.
No.
So anyway, I support this. Please support this show. It is the longest running comic book talk show of its kind, period. So please support John.
You're very kind, Rob. You know, honestly, when we first met face to face, it blew my mind. It was, I don't know if you remember this, it was San Diego, 2006. You were sitting with Loeb. And it was at the Hyatt or whatever. Yeah. And you're like, hey man, either you or Jeff said The Voice. And I'm like, get the hell out of here. Like, you even know who the fuck I am.
Yeah, no.
And it meant so much to me. It still does, Rob. So that's
the Larry King of comics. That's how I tell everybody. Come on.
Excellent. All right, then. King of Prussia, Louisiana. Hello.
There you go. Hey, and look, just trust me. I know that you're going to pull the troll bridge up if it gets bad, because trolls come out on these things. So, but yeah, I'll answer whatever question as best I can. I could have lied. I could have told you I saw Return of the Jedi. It was my great disappointment. I got to be honest. I feel like, first of all, they didn't have it in theaters the actual anniversary. It was like a month before, and then it was gone so fast. So yeah,
that's movies now, man. I mean, that, literally, I struggle with the same thing. I mean, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll see Shazam in the theater. No, oh yeah, I'll see Ant-Man in the theater. No, even Creed 3. And I'm such a boxing nut.
See, Creed 3. That's what was going on. My son was back. My son was visiting from Texas because he lives in Texas now, my oldest. And he's like, Dad, let's go see Creed 3. And so we got IMAX Sunday night, went and saw it, blew my mind. I was so blown away with the direction of Michael B. Jordan. It's so, you want to talk about live action manga. He put the camera on the shoulders. Oh, John, it's fantastic. I was so blown away. I'm like, no one in superhero films has shot action and fighting like he did. And that's saying something.
Well, he took a page from Coogler and what Coogler did in the first 2 movies.
He did.
And it's great. God, I really wish Michael would, and I wish Killmonger was still alive.
Yeah,
because he made such an impact in that first Panther
sure
movie. And yeah, it's a shame, man. So
no, he really he borrows from anime and manga in this time. I mean, you have never. It's like Dragon Ball Z.
yeah.
It's like Naruto. I mean, he literally is bringing manga to life. It's crazy. He does shots that have never been put forth in live action. Kudos to him. Great job. But yeah,
I'm with you, man. Back to Better Blood. I'm on the Marvel press list, so I get it on the PDFs, and I'm scrolling down, and there's a couple scenes, and I don't even have to like go into describe them and everything. But I was wondering, did you tilt the camera, and all of a sudden were they double page splash pages, or did you move the camera to?
No. You're talking about, and I talked
Yeah,
about this
open it up if you want.
Yeah, you're talking about when you have to turn the page.
Yes.
Sideways. Okay.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
No. Look, here's the deal. I am not a fan of this guy. My original Hawk and Dove editor, we don't like each other at all. And I was a very young penciler, and he was. I've said it before. Just, and it's not a secret. There's people who really like him, who will protect him, but he was absolutely the most abusive person I've ever encountered in comic books. And I was like, I get you. You're just a hurdle I have to overcome, and I have to get through this situation with you. And the funny thing, with all of the ways that he would chew me out and insult me and degrade me, at the end of the series, when he asked me to change the sideways sequence, and I refused, and I said, I've already got work. I'm drawing the X-Men now. And then he just went, what do you mean you're drawing? What do you mean you're drawing the X-Men? And he's screaming at me. I had to hold the phone, a rotary phone, away from my ear. Oh, that's what they do. That's what they do. They let us break you in, and then they steal you. And I'm like, well, I'm happy to be hanging with they. Okay, because I understand what you don't like what they do, in this instance, Marvel, and he came from Marvel. And I said, look, I'm not redoing these pages. You do with them what you want. I've already been paid for it. I'm sorry you think this is some great portrayal. And he's like, things you should never, he told me this, you should never move a comic book. You should never. And I'm like, that's funny because you were an editor on a sideways issue with John Byrne. But okay, like the hypocrisy doesn't end. So whenever I make you turn the page, John, and there are so many people who have mentioned this and how much they enjoy it, I think of this absolute, let me look right into the camera, blowhard, and his blowhard like attitude. And I just go, enjoy this. There's a reason Todd McFarlane and I called our sideways crossover sabotage. Okay. Because I was told, Robert Kirkman asked me this the other day. He's like, can I clarify with this with you? Like, I was told with Hawk and Dove that I had sabotaged the job. And so I'm like, all I hear in 1991 now is the Beastie Boys, sabotage. And here's X-Force number 4. Enjoy this. And Todd Spider-Man, we had quite a good time too. And people always tell me how much they enjoyed that. So whatever little, cube that he insisted on living his life in, I won't do that. So yeah, the camera is tilted. Thank you for giving me that opportunity to tell that story. And I even told it very clean. I'm very family friendly on your show tonight. John, it's the podcast in me. I'm very family friendly. I always go, I don't want to curse. People have told me they listen to this with their kids, so I'm going to be nice.
Well, you're a good man. Cause honestly,
there's a couple times you can turn and go sideways.
Yeah.
And that's part of the art form. Trust me. In issue 3, I called up Marvel when I was doing issue 3. I said, hey, I'm just going to give you guys a heads up because I know, I think they need to know this. Because hats off to Marvel. They treat the old man very well. They just let me do my thing.
Yeah, good.
I pick my collaborators. I get to pick my stories. I feel like I've earned it. And I said, there's 4 double page spreads in the 3rd issue. You need to know this ahead of time because I know ad placement, and I just need you to know there's 4 double page spreads. And I knew it. The email came back and said, 4 double page spreads? Wow. And I'm like, yes. But they were like, great.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm having I just want to visually, there are just Jack Kirby. When I look at his 1970s work, the Captain Americas we talked about, the Machine Man, the Black Panther work he did, it's splash page, double page splash page, 2 pages later, splash page, ends on a splash page. The comics I grew up loving, if I grabbed some of those Uncanny X-Men, John Byrne, splash page, double page splash in the middle, splash at the end. And you're like, they were doing this in 17-page comics, John.
Yes.
And they were giving us more story, honestly, than we get now. I'm telling you. They packed more into those 17 pages. So I'm just trying to really, I sit there and I look at a lot of the comics on the shelves today, and I wonder if everyone is having as much fun as they should have. And I'm like, people need to go out and push the limits of the storytelling and get bigger, get bolder. We are, I said this, and I don't mind saying this to you right now. When I release this, what I believe is I'm negotiating when you come into the store and this is on the shelf, I'm negotiating with you. I want you to pick this up. And then as you look at it, you go, like, here's the deal. Page 4 and 5 are like, hey man, do you like us better than page 2 and 3? Like, and I'm like, yeah, page 4 and 5, you're cool. This is really got 6 and 7. 6 and 7. Like, every page is trying to convince you, walk me over to the cash register and purchase me.
Indeed.
And I don't take the purchase for granted. I want to win that negotiation. I want to win that, convincing of, so that's issue 3. Maybe I can come back for issue 3.
It'd be my pleasure.
I feel issue 3 and now issue 4 are like my boom. They're big ass flexes in a way that I haven't done since the Image days, when it was like, wait, I can make every page a splash page. Like, this is me talking to me. And the other me would say, like, yeah, dumbass, you own the company. Like, do whatever you want. And so I'm like, well, I think Marvel's kind of open to me pushing the storytelling boundaries. And again, it's all about Kirby, just the visuals. You are dazzled by a Jack Kirby page because of the visuals and everything he packed into it. And I think, like, we should be even more visually minded now than ever before, given all of the things that we're competing with.
Agreed. And again, when we were kids, there weren't as many entertainment options as there are today. Exactly. And, Rob, do you think, because obviously the movies really have introduced Deadpool to an entirely different stratosphere of merchandise and awareness. And I mean, it kills me when I go to a toy store and there's a Deadpool bank or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But do you think comics can be the access drug that it was for us?
That's going to be tough to pull off, but then manga will tell you that of course they can. Look, John, when I go to my so all of the Barnes and Nobles, which are the premier bookseller now in Southern California, there is no one else.
Okay.
And they have giant. The thing that's shocking is the Barnes and Noble, the 2 biggest ones. One is in Santa Ana, and it's across from a giant mall called the Main Place, and it's been there for almost 30 years. It's one of those, all of the big Barnes and Nobles here in Orange County are 2-story with the escalator that takes you up to the 2nd story. And then, they're giant overhead. And I thought they would both go out of business during the pandemic.
Sure.
The second one is at a giant and even bigger mall outlet called Irvine Spectrum, which has the biggest IMAX screen in Southern California. And literally the only IMAX screen bigger is in San Francisco. Because trust me, I've Googled this, I've researched this. Because people who come with me to Irvine Spectrum, that they're I'm sidebarring here, but there's Limax screens. I love that term. They say, "Oh, I'm an IMAX," and it's made by IMAX, but it's like 5 feet bigger than a normal screen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna name drop him, my good buddy Robert Kirkman, and he's one of several. Travel 2 hours, because that's what it takes in traffic to get to Irvine. It's a good 45 minutes past where I live, and I'm already 90 minutes from LA. And we went and saw Dune. We saw Maverick. We've seen at least one of the Mission Impossibles. Ever since he experienced it, he's like, "Oh no, there's nothing." I mean, my wife hadn't gone in a while, and like when you turn, you go down deep into a tunnel, then you emerge, and then you walk up like 3 stories worth of stairs to take your seats, and it's enormous. And so that is what keeps this in. It is the centerpiece of this entire mall. But they have another Barnes and Noble 2-story, even bigger than the one in Santa Ana. And what's happened is the Western comics, the Marvel DC now get the back wall. And when I mean the back wall, I mean the back of manga has built out a neighborhood. You first, they have all the recommended mangas on the tables when you go into that section. Then you enter into a giant kind of horseshoe. It's like a fortress, and it starts A, and then you go inside. B, C, D, E takes you inside. Okay, and then you exit and you go to T, and then you get to W, V, E, in the alphabet. And this is all manga. And then there's tables in front of you that have manga. And this is at both places. This is how Barnes & Noble does this. This is all manga. And then in the back, two sections, ultimately 6 shelves for Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, all of it. Boom. And you're like, what is going on here? And I have gone there at the holidays looking, because my youngest son loves his transactions are all manga. That's
wow.
Manga and anime have been his thing for 15 years. He has loved them since he was a young child, and he'll be like, "Come on, Dad, you got to try." Look, I heard of Chainsaw Man 2 years before I heard from it anywhere else, because my son's like, "Dad, this guy has a chainsaw for a face," and I'm like, "This can't be good." And then a year later, Eric Stevenson from Image Comics says, "Hey, Rob, I think you would totally dig this thing called Chainsaw Man." I go, "You're a year late. Chase introduced me to this a year ago." But so manga is dominating. I mean, and when we say manga, we are saying comic books. They're just Eastern.
Yeah.
They're all Eastern produced, themed, and they're wild. They're crazy. But I'm going to tell you something, John. They do giant, spectacular visuals better than we do. Full stop. End of story. And any American artist or Western artist who wants to deny it, I can reach over here to my pile right here and just level you. I mean, we're talking double page spreads of just a face. This would be a face screaming, "Ah!" Ah! And a guy leaping up to punch you, and then someone kicking. And you're like, "John, I'm buying manga about basketball and soccer." Okay.
Yes.
Because the basketball action and the soccer action is better than the superhero action. And I hope to God that someone who is watching this right now goes, "Liefeld just unlocked a secret for me. I'm going tomorrow. I'm buying all this shit. I'm buying basketball." You will thank me, and it will show up in your work in 3 months. I guarantee it.
And clearly, you're being influenced by it as well. And that's
more
wonderful, man.
More than anything, yes.
But again, you came. It's so funny. I remember when there was that Alan Moore documentary, and on a tangent, he was talking about how the steam engine was developed in different parts of the world around the same time, and just because it was in the zeitgeist of inventors to think like that. So there was we had Robert Fulton, but there was a guy in Italy doing it, and another guy, and all this other stuff. And I would say the same thing about the kinetic energy that you have in your work. And you were doing this prior to you didn't know about manga, but now it's great you're aware of it, and if anything, it's influencing what you do.
Hang on right there.
Go for it.
Oh! John, my original.
Let me see that. I'm zooming in. Oh, there it is.
It's How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. This is my original copy. I'm going to show you right now. This is how I signed everything. There's little Robbie Liefeld's.
Nice.
Rob Liefeld. Okay. My parents would take me to the mall. We'd go to the mall every Friday night in the late 70s. And instead of Barnes & Noble, there was Walden Books.
Sure.
Walden Books was our bookseller. And
yes.
they had the big bookseller in the mall. And again, this is a first printing. It came out in 1978. You can see 1978.
Yep.
And it had the John Buscema, what do you call it? The
slip cover, yeah.
Slip cover, but that got
dust jacket, yeah.
Dust jacket, but I still have this stains and all.
Oh yeah.
and let me tell you something. Let me tell you something right now. The reason I'm grabbing this, when you talk about kinetic energy, there's nothing in here that spoke to me greater I mean, it starts right here. Like John Buscema will tell you, this Doctor Doom yelling is great. This is better.
Yes.
This is the arms are up more furiously. The head is back. The legs are spread. Okay. But even beyond that, there's one diagram. And I remember going, oh shit, I just get this. He spoke to me on such a fundamental, here it is. This is the game changer.
Wow.
And it's like, this is your finish.
Right.
And this is your start.
Yep.
And anywhere in between is not the Marvel way. This is the one you want the wind up and you want the follow through.
Interesting.
And like, these are nice.
Sure.
But this is your A and this is your Z. Like, and it's like, again, look, best, not bad, weak, not bad, best. And
wow.
I get it. And every time I lay out a story, it says, try to exaggerate your action. Keep the figure loose, supple, always in motion. When I got this in 1978, I'm 11 years old. And I am just blown away. I instantly understood what he's saying here because I understood what I loved in all the Marvel comics. And so, right here, when Wolverine is at his lowest running out of this portal,
yes,
I'm like, this is best. This is,
I'm with you.
If he puts his neck out any further, he's going to fall and trip. And this swing right here, this is the ape. That's as exaggerated as this can get.
Sure.
These fundamentals are the stuff that I just, I picked up on at a young age, and I realized that's when I like this stuff the most is when these guys are, in the most exaggerated motion of the action. And so that is, and look, John Buscema will tell you, and I mean, he's the Michelangelo of comics. Obviously he's long gone, long passed away, but I've read so many interviews with him where he would just go, I was just looking at Kirby. I was just looking at Jack, like as well as he draws and from all of the Frazetta and Hal Foster,
sure,
that's in his work. He will tell you when he did comics, he looked like he knew that Jack just had a way of mastering a page. So anybody, and okay, so now I'm going to segue.
Okay.
So one thing I wanted to talk to you about. A major Marvel executive and a major DC executive, both in the last 4 years, one right before the pandemic, then one in the middle. When we were talking about comics and developing the talent today, they're like, Rob, we just don't have the teachers and the means to instruct them that were available to us before. And, I remember flying to visit Marvel Comics the year prior. I had flown to New York City to on DC's dime to meet everybody. And then the next year when I was working at Marvel, and I'm going to tell you right now, Friday night at both places, a year prior, Friday night, DC Comics, everybody comes in to drop off their work. Friday was a big deadline day. And you had Jerry Ordway and Mike Zeck, because I had gone to Connecticut to stay with them. And if you don't think I picked their brains while in their presence, in their studios, in their houses, Mike Zeck is the one that told me, Rob, he had his slight Southern drawl, the storytelling and the guiding of the eye through the page, the subtlety of that is what separates the great comics from the good. The reader doesn't even understand what you're doing to them. But if you do it right, and these are the things I picked up in close proximity. But Jerry Ordway, Mike, we got in the train, we went into New York City, and everybody's there, and everybody goes out to dinner. This is 1988.
Okay.
And everybody hangs out and talks shop, and Carl Kiesel, who was inking me, was there too, and so many other different talents. Kevin McGuire, who was doing Justice League, was in the offices that afternoon, and that's how I met him physically. 1 year later, when I'm at the Marvel offices, I am in the hallway with Chris Claremont, with Walt Simonson. You've got all these people in one place editors on the spot, meeting, greeting talent, instructing them. Today, in the age we live in, it's very hard to give the same instruction. And like when I shared a studio with Jim Valentino, he brought me all his Fantastic Fours, 1 through 101. Said, Rob, do me a favor, just study the storytelling. He said to me, you're trying to be George Perez. You're trying to make 10 panel pages, 12 panel pages, and you don't understand why George is doing what he's doing. Start with the basics, cut your teeth. And he said, just look at the storytelling. Don't look at the drawing. And what's going on is, and both this DC executive and this Marvel executive both shared to me, like, it's just harder to instruct these guys nowadays because we don't really have the forum to do it. And I've read about Jim Shooter having, sessions with everybody, editors and artists who were invited to come in when he was the EIC and giving basic instruction. And the drawing in comics has never been better. So many incredible illustrators, right? So many great figure artists. And I do think also there is oh man, I feel like this is a secret sauce. I've worked this advantage to my advantage, but John, there's a lot of people who don't want to stand out anymore too. You and I both, we've talked today, and you've talked about my work too. And I know people will say this about my work too. It's very distinct. You could spot a John Byrne from a George Perez, from a Jim Starlin, from a Howard Chaykin, from a Gil Kane, from a Mike Zeck. Everybody had a style. Do you know that if I could go put 6 comic books, just 6 comics from DC alone on your desk right now, and they all look the same. They are all trying to do I swear to you, it's a version of Stuart Immonen, who was himself in the beginning a version of Adam Hughes before he became Stuart Immonen. And it's all these that it's like they're just like Stuart Immonen is the guy we're all going to draw like. And it's a very basic fundamental approach, but very few guys are taking it into a more stylistic realm, which I literally now go, wait, is this guy? Oh, wow. No, it's another guy. Oh man, this guy. There's like 6 guys who are like, it's the beginning of Fast Times at Ridgemont High when Phoebe Cates goes, these 5 girls have co-opted the Pat Benatar look. And I'm like, these artists are all drawing the same. And the thing is, I want to like go, hello, like Biff from Back to the Future. Hello. You need to stand out. If I think your work looks the same, that doesn't mean it's not well drawn. It's just, it's this, there's a homogenization of, and so I told this to somebody else and he said, Rob, they're all, not all, many of them are using the same programs. They're using Poser. They're using, and I was like, whoa, this guy went for a much deeper dive. And then that gets into the digital realm.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I am also seeing, because again, you and I could sit here, Terry Austin, Joe Rubenstein, Klaus Janson, Dick Giordano, distinct inking styles.
Yes.
A John Byrne inked by Joe Rubenstein, his Captain America, beautiful, amazing. Totally different than that John Byrne inked by Terry Austin, which was also beautiful and amazing.
Yep. And
but 2 completely different approaches. Klaus Janson comes in. People always go, oh, Frank Miller, he only looked good because of Klaus Janson. I'm like, really? Because I'm pretty sure I loved Wolverine inked by Joe Rubenstein and the Daredevil issues and the What If that Terry Austin inked over Frank too. Like, I can't stand because John, that's the one thing. These fans that have been around for about 12, 15 years, and Wikipedia is their source for everything. But the inker, staying on the inkers, the inkers.
Yes.
The biggest inker in comics, and he's a phenomenon, is a program called Procreate. Procreate is cleaning up. Procreate, like everyone's getting those same digital brushes, because I'm like, holy shit, this was also inked by Procreate, and this was also inked by Procreate. And John, here's the deal. These are just part of my tools. I just reached into my drawer. I use all manner of different, pens.
Sure.
and I use brushes and quills, and I go through these. I scrape them on the page. I work them to the one of these is good for about a page and a half, 2 pages.
Wow.
So I spend a lot of money on ink. Okay. So and it's just like when we were using quills. The back in the day, the technology. Here's John. Did you mention earlier something about Deadpool merchandise?
There you go.
So hey, look at me and my pen holder. Again, so there's these are another group of pens from, I think these are Faber-Castell, and I'm all about ink and tools.
Yeah.
And I understand the speed with which that the digital programs allow. So I don't want this, like, I appreciate it. I understand it. I think this current class needs to understand, like, you now, so you're all mastering these tools that kind of lack a distinction. It's on you to put the distinction into it, right? It's on you to put the distinction. It's just like the computer when everything went, for a lack of a better term, Pixar-y, and everyone went 3D. Like, had everyone stayed there, we wouldn't get into the Spider-Verse, right? Had everyone just stayed with, hey, I'm going to make everything look like Toy Story and Shrek, which is obviously DreamWorks, not Pixar. But
I know what you mean, though.
No, but I'm anticipating that voice right now that's saying Liefeld just called Shrek a Pixar movie, because they live to get triggered like that. Okay, and before you can actually explain your position, they're like, "You're wrong." No, buddy, just calm down. And you know who I am. I'm talking to you, buddy. I'm talking to you. You know who you are. You just had a meltdown before I said DreamWorks with Shrek. Okay. So, but they were kind of that early digital model.
Right.
But again, we don't get to where we're getting now with what is going on in both Spider-Verse movies, which are mind blowing.
Yes.
Like, so yeah. I mean, so my rant is over, John. Is there something else you want to talk about?
Well, first of all, what you just said, I'm going to point everybody to your recent episode about AI, because I really appreciated that episode as well. And I did want to talk to you about that, but you kind of cover it in your podcast. But this is along the same lines. Even though it is a tool that pencilers can use, it takes away a job. And that's kind of the whole point of the writer's strike right now, which, as a proud member of the Screen Actors Guild, I voted to strike. And the negotiations are just beginning 100%. With the actors. And it's going to go, they've got till the end of the month. And as I said on social media, I'm like, hey, I just hope that this added voice is going to help get where things are right. And it's not about, I had the same kind of argument as you did about DreamWorks and Pixar, with the guy who's like, well, most of the stuff that the studios are putting out is crap, so why should they get more money? And it's like, no, that's not the point of the strike. The point of the strike is they have changed the rules about writing. And you cover it well, I think, in your episode. But, the writers are being asked to write things for free to establish an idea. Like, and I'm not saying, hey, this is my idea for a pilot and a short thing. They want you to do all that work before even a pilot is greenlit for free. That's bullshit. It's about work. It's about amount of time and not getting paid for the creative ideas that, whether the final production is a hit or a miss, it's, the writer is only there to, write the story, and then it's out of his hands. And then it's all about the actors and the directors and the way it's promoted.
Right. So 90 minutes before I jumped on with you, I went and grabbed a quick dinner with my wife. And look, my wife and her sisters at one point were actresses and worked in their teenage years. Young Chase Liefeld, who very much needs the strike to be over so he can get back to work. He's an actor. All his actor friends are sidelined. He was, things were chugging at a great rate. And, today came in, and I'll cry if I go deeper into it. But because I'm a creative person. I have one son who's thriving in the business realm. My daughter's going to enter into her sophomore year. And then there's Chase, who's pursuing the same creative outlet as his dad is, just in being a creative person. I'm obviously not an actor, but he writes, he draws as well. And as a parent, you go, oh, this is so difficult. I know how difficult it was for me. I tell people all the time, I proudly tell them I was the last person picked to draw Hawk and Dove. I was told that There were 20 people more important to me, more important than me. I remember this like it was yesterday because I had to wait it out. It's like the audition process. And I had to wait to get picked, and I had to wait for all manner of artists to turn it down, turn it down, turn it down, turn it down. And then I'm sitting there like panting like a dog. I'm ready. Where's my bone? I'm ready. I'm ready. I've been sitting here. I'm ready to go to on Hawk and Dove. So I know what the creative process and having to audition and wait for the callbacks and but what you're saying with the writing and the industry, I was telling my wife's like, hey, what happened? Did the directors just sign their deal? And I'm like, yes. Which is, I said, it's so weird because I have a bunch of director friends and they told me 6 weeks ago, when we go to strike, we're going to help the writers tremendously. It'll be this consolidation of power. And then it was like, wow, the same studios were like, we'll give you whatever you want. You're satisfied. Move along. Wow. I mean, completely the DGA, they met their demands because what are you going to do? You have a list of demands. The studio said, we'll meet them. Directors signed the deal yesterday. Now the actors voted to strike, and hopefully that will accelerate it. That because honestly, the actors and the writers are the most exposed. Like you said, writing is the rawest form of the creativity. You get a blank page, gets you a blank screen. So it has to be full of ideas and concepts and execution, right? And so I'm with you, John. My heart goes out. I hope and pray that the writer's strike can be resolved. It is I feel like I almost feel like the way the DGA was handled wonderfully. I mean, they gave them everything they wanted, sewed it up, sent them back out. It was almost like an insult to the writers. Like, wow. We want to really level to you that we value directors. Yeah, they're special. Writers, keep striking. It's hard to watch, but yeah, no, I mean, I'm like, so I'm with you. I really thought it was going to be the Directors Guild that was going to tilt the scale. And so did they, by the way, but I don't think they expected. I mean, Hollywood directors reach deal with studios as writer's strike continues. New York Times. Yeah. I mean, so it's like, but yeah, I mean, it's same with comics, novels, all of it. Everything starts with the idea. The idea is the result of story. There is no story without the idea. The story is the result of idea, and we need to get these people compensated. And obviously, I have so many friends who are in that business and who create wonderful, amazing, things that we love, shows, movies. So yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'm with you, buddy. So let's hope that gets worked out. But AI is, when I have heard such frightening abuses of it, as scared as I was of what was going on with the Mid-Journey and the artistic aspect of it, Chat GPT is terrifying. My wife came to me and said, hey, this guy who just gave his, graduation speech, he revealed the next day that a computer wrote it for him. And she showed me the story, and I'm like, man, it's great. The Chat GPT aspect is really terrifying. And that I did 2 AI episodes within 6 weeks because it's accelerated so fast. Yeah. It's becoming such a thing. And it was a couple of my friends, they said, Rob, in that first one, you said you drew a bunch of stuff with AI. I said, I did. They said, show it to me. I said, I won't. Like, it's, for all manner of reasons. I just didn't want to be one of those guys who are like, hey, everybody, could I have sent one of those and made them a variant on one of my Prophet books or one of my Brigade? I could have and never told you. But here's the other thing. Sure. There is a sameness to all of it right now. Now, I say it knowing that the next generation of programs are going to be even more advanced. Yeah. But we were saying that I've seen so much of it. And for whatever, for an extended period from about November to January, everybody was doing their Mid-Journey, their AI drawings, and they would put them all up on social media. And there was an avalanche, but they were all very similar. There's just a sheen that the computer, because you see what they're putting in their prompts. Alex Ross, there's a very popular Hollywood movie concept designer. They're putting his name in, and so you're like this. It has a shiny gloss to it, but I can see the sameness. So anyway, yeah, it's an issue.
No.
It's an issue, John.
I hear you, man. You know, it's funny. I was listening to an old Gilbert Gottfried episode, and they were comparing the original King Kong to the modern stuff. And they said something very smart, and that was, even though it was stop motion and it was a puppet, you knew it was stop motion, but there was like an authenticity because of the fur and the way the model was made, compared to now with CGI, where it looks real, but you know, in the back of your head, just like you said, there's a sheen. There is something that keeps it from being natural. And I agree with you. I think AI is only going to get smarter. God, even on your episode, Rob, you talked about how it's a danger to actors, and that people will, like, especially young kids, will want to put their faces on Indiana Jones or Luke Skywalker. And, you know, I've seen that app on Facebook a million times where there's a person, and all of a sudden they're doing, it's all quick little cuts, but it's them, suddenly they're Marilyn Monroe singing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. Some classic movie. And it never even made the leap for me until you said it, because I'm like, yeah, that's a cute toy, whatever, I don't want it. But then it's like, no, wait a minute, you could do that with a whole movie and punch somebody in, and it's like, wow. I mean, but I do think that original idea, and again, I agree, and I'm worried about Chat GPT as it learns. But I mean, I don't know, man. I was saying this to Azzarello, and maybe he just agreed with me to shut me up, and he's like, no, you're full of shit. But I'm like, there's something about the human inspiration where Brian is going to write a Batman story and find a wrinkle in the Batman character that I don't think Chat GPT would consider.
It's not. It can only imitate. So I may like Paul Thomas Anderson movies slightly more than I like Quentin Tarantino movies. And I love them both as much as I could possibly love anything.
Sure.
And mainly because both gentlemen love my youth. They love the 70s. It comes out in everything Tarantino does. It's in Foxy Brown. It's in Kill Bill. It's obviously all over Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. P.T. Anderson, whether it's Boogie Nights, which, again, that Irvine Spectrum. I mean, I went and saw it with Dan Frega from Extreme Studios. We went and saw Boogie Nights opening night, and we're like, what are we watching? and for Dan, it didn't have the same resonance, because I'm like, that's my youth, the 70s, this disco era. And the thing is, with Licorice Pizza, the last Paul Thomas Anderson movie, that is a guy who lived in the 70s. He lived in 1976, 77, 78. He is 100% showing you his inspiration, his experiences. A computer did not live in 1976 or 65. Okay. You know, they showed Zack Snyder showed, it's hysterical to me. I literally was like, okay, I'm going to do a quick skim of this. I mean, I read the whole Vanity Fair article, but I'm like, are they really never going to say Seven Samurai in this article? Because he has a new project called Rebel Moon. More power to him. I wear on my influences on my sleeve. I'm proud to wear my influences. I think as Spielberg and Coppola and Lucas wore theirs, and Tarantino, like, you should have fun with your influences. Rebel Moon is about a farming community that's under siege, and a group of, you know, mercenaries and bounty hunters come together to defend it. And I'm like, hey, we're doing Seven Samurai in space, which is not the first time it's been done. I think John Boy Walton did a version of this. I think Battle Beyond the Stars is kind of like this.
Sure, it is. Magnificent Seven too. I mean, you know
that. So they mentioned the Magnificent Seven in the article.
Good.
It's like, just say Magnificent Seven. Don't say Seven Samurai, which influenced Magnificent Seven.
Of course it did.
Like, so I'm like, well, come on, give Kurosawa. But the reason I'm saying this is, like,
I'm with you.
The 1956 movie that Kurosawa. I have the Criterion Collection. I'm clearly, if you know me, I love film. I was raised on film and comic books.
Sure.
But you sit there and you go, you know, Kurosawa brought whatever influences he did to make that movie in 1956 that you can't replicate. But now when you do replicate it, not that Zack Snyder's AI, but he is imitating something he liked.
Sure.
And they're farmers. They're freaking farmers. It's just like Seven Samurai. And I'm telling you, I think also there's like let's not say Seven Samurai, because Seven Samurai is farmers and swordsmen, which is
Right.
kind of what you're seeing in Rebel Moon footage. And if we say Magnificent Seven, they'll go run and look at cowboys and a small town being pillaged, which is not the same.
True.
But the actual source reflects exactly what's going on. And of course, I'm a huge Zack Snyder fan. I've done like 5 episodes on him alone because somehow he went from being this really interesting filmmaker, which he still is, but to being like this demigod to a fan base, which he's almost more important as a demigod than he is as a filmmaker, like the Snyderverse. And they're the way they define him within the DC universe. And trust me, I'm kind of a Snyder, like I backed the all the Snyderverse stuff. I funded it. I took pictures. I have the t-shirts. I held the signs. So I get it. But I've always enjoyed, from his music videos to 300, which, let's be honest, John, so many people don't remember what it was like in 2007 to when 300 opened, and we were all like, how does this movie exist? Indeed. How is it so brilliant? No, Zach is so talented, but I just figured Rebel Moon was a good, because it's 15 hours ago I was juxtaposing Rebel Moon footage with Seven Samurai, and sure. I even, like I said, I tweeted out and said this only goes to prove the power of Kurosawa from 1956 to now. So I mean, again, that's human. It's like you and Azarello were talking about. Look, no computer lived in 1956, and no computer certainly. And I hear that guy, no America had computers in underground bunkers in 56. Great, but they did not have them in feudal Japan. Okay,
right.
So again, we can only, the computers can only imitate and assimilate. I mean, it literally is the Borg, right?
Yes.
And just like Picard, we will find a way. We will find a way to navigate throughout the Borg. Watch, you and I wake up tomorrow, and the computers have launched World War III. So famous last words.
Oh, good Lord, man. Absolutely. No, we're 15 minutes away from Skynet. Absolutely. And the Terminator movies. No, the line must be drawn here and no further, as Patrick would say. Absolutely, man. You're killing me. Do you mind? And we're at an hour. I hope we got time to take a couple of these questions.
No, let's keep going. I blocked off 2 hours, John.
Oh, God bless you, Rob. I'm going to be as long as you want to go, Rob.
If you can go, I can go. If you can go, I can go.
All right. Oh, that's funny. Okay. J-Man wants to say, speaking of Seven Samurais, did you read Deadpool Samurai, the Deadpool manga that was out last year?
100%. Yes, sir.
What'd you think of it?
Wait, I used to have it right here. No, I look, if you don't think with all my copious praise of Deadpool, I'm just trying to see, is it over there? Yeah, it's right over there. No. I've got both volumes. I thought it was brilliant. Again, as someone else pointed out to me in one of my groups that I'm in today, like, here's the thing that's been lost, because right now, most certainly, absolutely, definitely, we are in the age of Spider-Man.
Sure.
He has come all the way back. And I just want to communicate this very clearly. I used to say to my wife, who's obviously my confidant, I'd say, it's weird, in 2016, Deadpool had eclipsed Spider-Man in popularity. And now you can do that. You can eclipse in moments in time, not for all time, but at that time, the 2016 $50 million Deadpool movie, go back, check it on IMDb, on Box Office Mojo. 2016's Deadpool made more than the first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie with Downey Jr., with Michael Keaton as the Vulture, with a spinoff from Civil War, because Spider-Man was having to fight its way back. As much as we enjoyed the Garfield movies, and I thought he was a perfect Peter Parker, those Garfield Sony Spider-Man movies did not find favor.
No.
And so then they brokered that deal to pact with Sony, and they brought him in Civil War, and we all dug him. But the first Spider-Man movie, Homecoming, literally underperformed by every metric based on what they were expecting. So then they circled back, and they got the Jake Gyllenhaal Mysterio episode, whatever, 2 years later, and that did better, and it was fighting its way back. But still, you were like, I think Marvel expected now that we've put our, imprimatur on this character, and he's in the MCU, and in 2018, Deadpool continues to make more Funkos. I use this metric all the time. Funko Pop, which obviously on any convention floor they go to, they have the most space, the most square footage, the longest lines. It clearly is no longer the case. But as far as 2020, Funko Pop had made more Deadpools than Spider-Man. Think about that, like literally.
Wow.
More Deadpool Funko Pops than Spider-Man. Now with the Spider-Verse and the expansion of Venom, like I said, and it really, when No Way Home came out and you got all three Spider-Man, and that movie was so pitch perfect.
Yeah.
I think since Christmas 2021 to right now 2023, there is no question Spider-Man is back to being the premier comic book character of all time. But as we were talking earlier, and I watched it from 2009 was the first time that Deadpool was prominent in a video game. And the reason I know this, and I've told this before, but I don't mind like really reinforcing it, because it's a weird journey to go on when your kids are digging Deadpool without any knowledge that you have any connection to him whatsoever. And so it started with it was an Ultimate Marvel game, and Deadpool was an unlockable character, like on the fourth or fifth level. And then the next year, Deadpool was in one of the Spider-Man games I think it's called Spider-Man Dimensions, and he was unlockable on like the fourth or fifth level. Then it blew up when Marvel did Marvel versus Capcom, and we might be in like 2011 at that point. And literally, all the kids would come over from around the neighborhood. They would all get on a Saturday. They'd be crammed in our game room. I'd pop my head in, and there's 8, 10, and 11-year-olds, and then my youngest son Chase, his 8, 9-year-old friends, and they're all waiting to play Marvel Capcom, and all they're playing is Deadpool fighting Deadpool, Deadpool fighting Deadpool. One time, Robert Kirkman came over for the weekend, and I mentioned this because we went out to lunch, and he came back, and he's quite the gamer. I'm not. I would live through my kids, playing these games, and they would tell me, I would watch these kids fight to play Deadpool. I'm Deadpool. I'm Deadpool. I'm next. And if you and so you, I suspect, are not like me, a giant gamer, but I was living this through my kids, who also were totally into all the Star Wars New Republic games and pulling down a Death Star in this Star Killer Star Wars game. I mean, my kids were totally video game superheads. I mean, when Halo came out and Call of Duty, it shifted to those games. But there was a new Deadpool game a year, or Deadpool was featured or prominent. But I think even Marvel would tell you the Capcom game with Deadpool, he would dance around, and he was very hard to defeat. He was very capable. The kids just loved him. And then, of course, they came to me and they told me in like 2012, we're making a dedicated standalone Deadpool game. And the guys who were making the game contacted me. They wanted my input. They wanted to make sure like they were sharing some of the stuff with me. It was really exciting. And then that video game was very ahead of its time. It's almost NC-17. And I did get in trouble given what I've just told you, how my kids were so game efficient from like 7, 8 years old. So my son is 13 when Deadpool 2014, the game comes out, and I buy the game and I put it in, and I ask him to play it. And I want to follow the levels because I can't play games. On the third level, my wife walks in. She's distributing the towels and the laundry that's been cleaned, and she pops her head in, and there's a scene, I think, as you transition from the third level to the fourth level, where there's a girl in a bikini, and Deadpool puts her hands out like this.
Oh dear!
And it closes in on her cleavage.
Oh dear!
He's like about to touch him, and my wife goes, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, go ahead and turn that off, Luke. Go ahead." and I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I'm just corrupting our son over here who's 11." Yeah, if it's 2014, he's 13. So yeah. I'm just corrupting my 13-year-old. Nothing to see here. But that was the first level, and it was like a 7-year period. And I've talked to Marvel about this, and they brilliantly planted Deadpool in. I mean, to get your own dedicated video game, console game, PlayStation, Xbox, back when those were all the rage.
Yeah.
Like that really seeded the character and to a young generation. So by the time he was in the movie, they're like, oh my gosh, forbidden fruit, R-rated. Half of those kids, all of my son's friends, 15 years old, needed a chauffeur.
Sure.
Because they weren't quite 16 yet in 2016. But the reason I'm taking you down this is the fact that Deadpool was the face for the manga. That's the character Marvel launched. And look, here's the thing. I was doing an interview for Batter Blood, and a guy asked me about this. A lot of your game heads are aware of this. And a bunch of my friends who had younger kids than me in the pandemic, the very first, this is the answer to a trivia contest. The very first Marvel character in Fortnite, which is a giant video game platform, was Deadpool. In the pandemic, in like April and May, they released to everybody, because remember, kids were just staying at home playing games. They cut a deal. They announced Deadpool was coming. Then they gave him his gray X-Force costume. Then they announced Cable and Domino X-Force are entering the game. This was Marvel's first foray into Fortnite. And literally Marvel will tell you, I won't tell you from who from Marvel, but they're like, Rob, we cleaned up, because they got a percentage of, they're called skins. You bought Deadpool, then you got all the different skins and the weapons, and they cleaned up. Kids were swiping their parents' cards like crazy. So Deadpool led the way into Fortnite. Deadpool led the way into manga, and he still has a lane that is completely his own. And I'm always very fortunate that people seem to follow me into that lane whenever I go there. Like I said, we didn't anticipate a $25 hardcover, 100-page hardcover, selling out and topping the charts in 2017, but it happened because, again, I'm very fortunate that the fans always follow me with him, and I'm going to take a breath because I talked a lot.
No, it's all good, but I will let you take a breath. And Dennis Hoffman was very kind and tipped, and I want to go back to one of his questions that he had. Let's see here. Well, first I'll do Peter Beiser as well. Here's Dennis, and he said, "Love Rob. Definitely checking out Batter Blood tomorrow. Hoping we're getting to see more profits from you as well. Love the pages you shared that were inked by Stephen Rexsider.
Yes, Stephen and I met Stephen on Instagram. I immediately asked him to ink over some pencil pages of mine. Loved the results. There's several that we haven't seen, but I have a specific project I have in mind for Stephen, and I would not mind pulling him onto maybe my next Deadpool project. When I jam with somebody, I try and make it project specific. And Deadpool, I depict Deadpool in a very certain way, and Steven's finishing of me. And here's another thing that's you get to when you mature and you're in this business a long time. My peers and I, it was so important when we were first coming up that every line that we put down was very faithfully, reflective of what we wanted. And even though we had grown up going back to where like a Terry Austin, John Byrne combo was different than a Klaus Janson Byrne and a Rubenstein Byrne and a Dane Green. And in the last decade, I love seeing people interpret me. And, 2 years ago when I was finishing up Snake Eyes Dead Game, I go, how do I make the last issue? Because the last chapter is generally the worst selling chapter of every comic. Doesn't matter. I think probably issue 12's probably buck that system because 12 is so powerful. It's the 12th chapter. So something like a Watchmen or something that goes long like that, like Camelot 3000. But I think 5-issue miniseries, probably 5 is going to have some attrition in sales. So in Snake Eyes Dead Game number 5, I called up everybody. Jerry Ordway, will you ink me? Art Taber, will you ink me? Dan Panosian, will you ink me? And then I said, oh, I am going to ask because we're buddies. I said, Kevin Eastman, would you ink me? Would you ink a page of mine? And I knew if Kevin's going to say yes, I'm going to give him a badass action page of Snake Eyes and the bad guy. And Kevin returned it to me. And to this day, last night, I was filing some comics away, and IDW, because that issue was so popular today, black and white version to show you the line art without the color of how everyone inked me. And of course, the Kevin Eastman was a double pager. I'm like, if I'm going to get Kevin, I'm going to do a giant action shot. And again, this was established when I called Neil, and this is a fact. The Addams family will tell you his pages he inked over me were his last interior work in comics.
Wow.
Because and I called him up and I said, summer of 2021, late spring 2021, and I said, Neil, will you ink this? And because I had really just enjoyed all of the different dinners and I would park myself at Neil's table before and after shows, and I think he was like, are you really going to ask me about Superman Muhammad Ali again? But no, Neil, I just picked his brain and wanted to go back and talk about, the Tribe and Continuity Studios. And, he just had the best stories. But he said to me, Rob, I'll only ink you on Snake Eyes if it's a double pager. It has to be a double pager. I want a big spread. So I made another giant action shot with Snake Eyes, and I sent it to him, and the family literally 2 weeks later sent it back, said, Rob, Neil wants to know what you think of this. I'm like, what the, oh my gosh. Neil just went to town on it. Johnny went into the hospital 2 weeks later, and then he was in the hospital for like 3 or 4 weeks. And then he came out, and about 8 months later he passed.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I cannot believe the fortuitous, the good fortune I had of approaching Neil when he was healthy, before he got sick, because the work is kick ass. And but same with Kevin. And of course, when you seal the Neil pages, you see a lot more of Neil. It's just my gestures, my motion. And if you don't think those are exaggerated figures, they are in full gesture, because I knew Neil would just do his thing. Kevin Eastman, the same thing. This guy, Steven, that they're asking you about, it's a really fun blend. So I want something that you see us equally, that you'll remember that's unique. If I dropped him into a Deadpool issue, it would stick out like a sore thumb. You'd be like, what's that? That isn't consistent with these pages, right? So that's your answer. Thank you for asking me. I'm a blowhard and I'm long-winded.
Rob, they come for you. I'm here as I say, I'm here every week.
Hey, and are we tipping John? We need to tip John. This show kicks ass. Let's go.
And everyone who's asking, and they're like, well, where's the tip button on your YouTube, of this video right now?
Good.
For whatever reason, it went away, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. But I have Stream Elements. There's a hot link in the description of the episode that you can go to and tip there if you don't mind. And really, everybody, I really appreciate it. And people are subscribing as well through Stream Elements. It means a lot. Thank you very much. Rob, I wanted to ask you about an episode that you did a couple months ago that I absolutely was over the moon about, and that was the prospect of finally Superman going into public domain. And Rob, I am so excited to see and I know we got to wait a few years, but I will be there when your issue of public domain Superman drops.
John, you're not going to wait a few years. I'm going to give mine away for free. I can do it whenever I want. I can draw a Superman strip and put it online for you to view free. And brother, I'm doing it right now.
Wow.
No. In my free time, I am a couple pages in, because John, I am haunted by the fact that Superman does not do better. And you know how you lose me? The fastest way to lose me is he's too powerful. He's too bad. Oh, you can't write a good story. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard.
I'm with you.
He is the greatest superhero in the history of comic books. And I love him so much. I just wish I got along with one single person at DC Comics. But I just talk to the hand. I do not have time for them. My run-ins with them never go well. I don't know what it is, but there is some just bad karma. And it's just weird. But Superman, you just sit there and you go, and I'm going to tell you, you know what? I heard the voices. Like I said, I always kind of operate with the voices. I'm a pretty good anticipator of the dissenting voices, no matter what's not just in my life, but whenever you can tell how things are going to be framed, or the counterpoint to something. And I said, you know what? And I wanted to go out of my way on the podcast to share that you're only going to be able to take those specific elements from that very first Superman story when it comes time for him to enter the public domain.
Correct.
But there is so much. So I went and I downloaded, I purchased the recent facsimile of Action Comics, and I just studied it for about 2 days. That thing is loaded. There is, and I'm giving everything away today. You don't need anything more than what is in that original Action Comics to make him the most important comic character of all space and time. Again, they don't call him Mom and Pa Kent, but there's adopted parents,
right?
And they don't cover a lot of stuff about Krypton. You just know that he comes from another planet. He's in a rocket. He definitely works at the Daily Planet. He works at a newspaper. Sorry.
Right. It might be the Daily Star in that first.
He works at a newspaper. I got ahead of myself. He works at a newspaper. He is Clark Kent. He is a reporter. Bullets bounce off of him. He rips a steel door off its hinges. He obviously has, leaps as high as the tallest building.
Right.
Which, if he can leap to the top of the Empire State Building and then leap again, you've got some assimilation of flight, right?
Right. That's what they did with the Hulk back in the original run.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I was sitting there and just going, again, to me, it's so visual, but I believe, man, and I am watch. So when this happens in 6 weeks or you read about it, can we just agree that it happened here? Okay. Shit. I'm not holding on to anything. I don't give a crap. Look, they should only go back to that and say, this is our Bible, this original story. Forget everything else that ever happened. That's what we're asking. He is Superman. He is Clark Kent. He's an alien. He was adopted. He was raised by earthly parents.
Yep.
Let's go. And you know what? You create everything else new. And I'm telling you that there is so much. We talk about writers and ideas and concepts. That original story is loaded. There's enough branches you can build. I mean,
yeah,
there's enough seeds in there you can make a vineyard. It's brilliant. And again, you go, there's the spit curl. You've got the visual component, but people like sometimes, and I know that John Byrne was famous for his back to basics approach. But this is about as back to basic as you can possibly go. And here's the thing, John, a year later, Batman comes. A year later. But yeah, I'm like, man, I'm just going to do a free Superman story and give it away for free online. And you know what? Because why can't I do fan fiction, right, John? Why can't I do fan fiction?
I'm for it.
And I mean, like, there's not a million Star Wars fanfics out there, right? And Star Trek, and as long as you're just giving it away for free, I'm not charging. I won't have a tip button. I won't. It'll just be, there'll be no advertising. I am really anti-advertising. I have had 3 different people come to me with a plan. Oh, Rob, here's how you can monetize here. And I'm like, I have to read this shit? No. I'm like, I am not. The thing that bothers me is when whoever, I mean, good God, I listen to a lot of Bill Simmons and all of his sports talk.
Absolutely. Great podcast.
I read all his columns and I would dine out on all of his vicious hatred of the Lakers, being the Boston Celtics homer that he is. And I may or may not have retweeted the pathetic shot of him at the game last week when they lost Game 7 in the Garden, and he flew all the way there to watch it. Good job. But his podcast is just him reading advertisements to me now. And I understand he's financing a whole network But the whole thing is like, some of my friends are like, Rob, I want to hear you read ads. And I'm like, nothing loses me faster than Rob. We can sell all these different ads with your podcast. And no, I'm just going to talk into the microphone. I'm going to do my episodes and I'm going to walk away.
Do you know your metrics, Rob? Do you know how many people
Oh,
download your show and everything?
No. Of course I do. Yes.
Okay, good. Well, honestly, Rob, I know podcasters or people that do it as just not even a side hustle. They're just doing it for the love of it's another outlet for them. And they don't know. And it blows my mind. And I'm like, no, like, know your numbers, man. It's and obviously being a comic book guy, of course you know your numbers. So you get how important those numbers are.
The first year I told everybody, don't show them to me. It's a year. I don't want to look at this.
Okay.
But it was last year when I got some new producers to just filter the sound and put the opening and the closing on, and great guys. And I obviously they work for me on a monthly basis. And they were like, Rob, are you aware of this? And because now they had all the data and they showed it with me. And I got to be honest, John, I was really shocked because it's what you said. I don't do it for any other reason. So it was born out of loneliness in a pandemic, where we were all scared to go outside.
Sure.
And my, I remember about 8 weeks, 2 months in, my daughter's friends finally came over. They'd negotiated with their parents, and she popped the back of her hatchback and sat in it. And my daughter sat in the back of our truck, and they talked to each other with like 10 feet in between them. And I was so sad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I tell my kids, like, cause they were like, oh, Dad, you were so scared. And I'm like, I was concerned. Sure. I would say to them, my mom, who was still with us at the time, she is in her 80s, kids, and she has never been part of a pandemic. So this is new territory. But when I read Steven Spielberg, when he was doing press for the Fablemans, he said, I thought the world was ending. I thought this is how mankind ends its existence. And I was preparing for mankind to be wiped out. And I'm like, look, if someone is smart with the means and the information and the sheer wealth at his fingers that Steven has is having the same concern that Rob Liefeld has, I didn't feel as like ridiculous.
No.
But so I kept going, well, because we kind of ran out of things to talk to with our friends because there was literally nothing going on in the world either, right? Because it would just slow to a crawl. And so I started the podcast to just share my journey and my love of comics. And John, I did not know that it would reach as many people and connect. And that's just fun. And now I'm kind of on a mission because I've learned that I'm one of the few people that kept everything.
Which is great, by the way. Go on.
I'm like, hey, I have Overstreet Price Guide from July 1991. Anybody want to read market reports with Rob? Hey, let's read the what's hot, what's not 1991 reports. And this is a time capsule. Like, that in and of itself, because I'm just looking through boxes that have been in my garage for a decade. I'm like, oh, I wonder what's in these. Oh, wow. And it's like, it's incredible because all of this informs us. And it's weird because I think there's some people who really have a hunger who want to be educated.
Yes.
And I am not an educator. I am a sharer of information.
Okay.
And by sharing the information, you are getting educated.
Yes.
If you are not aware. And part of this was there's some family members I had. They're the Wikipedia kids I talk about. They run the Wikipedia before Ant-Man opens and find out everything that Wikipedia told you about Kang, but they scanned it so fast. I said, well, like Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy is not how Mantis was introduced in the comics. She was the Celestial Madonna. She was betrothed to Kang, and then she fell in love with the swordsman. And I'm like, Wikipedia didn't tell you that, did it? Wikipedia said he's a time traveler, and Wikipedia lost you the minute they said Rama Tut. But you got your 2 paragraphs so that in line or before the movie or after, you can be smarter than your friends, right? Because all these dudes just want to download the fastest bit they can.
Right.
And so I just figure I have a passion for this. I love talking about it. And there's so much. So there's an audience that wants to have the information shared. And then there's an audience that does not. They don't want anything to change their preconceived narratives.
That's fine. Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm like, well, you can't change the dates on this, and you can't change the information. And again, like these press reports, the great thing about Overstreet, I tried to say, there is not a single interview. The only thing that they would do to promote anything was the cover. Okay, you got a Mark Bagley Spider-Man cover. That's as much. They're promoting Spider-Man on the cover. That's it. Inside, you're getting 1990 market reports about what's going on. And there's 35 retailers. And John, retailers, they're so long because retailers wanted to share what's working for them and see if it's working for you. And maybe they had some trends that you were experiencing that they weren't, or vice versa. And it's like, these should be studied because they are telling you what sold, what didn't sell, what was going up in price, what wasn't. I mean, it's just a great time capsule. And so I'm just going to, until I share everything, I'll just keep going.
Rob,
I have a lot. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to tell you Friday's episode. Yeah. I cannot believe I have waited this long. The title alone will be misleading intentionally because it's, but boy, and again, I was out sorting my comics, and I had pulled these comics out that were in my office for quite a long time, but I had cycled them back out to the garage boxes. And I was like, you know what? These are so good. I'm going to bring these back in. I'm going to look at these. And then I'm like, I need to talk about this because this, you'll see. Sometimes I hit on a topic that I go, damn, nailed it. And then there's others that I'm like, I think this topic's just for me. This one is in the damn nailed it category. I can't wait to share it.
I'm excited. That's great.
Yes. Thank you.
Rob, those magazines, more so Comics Journal, Amazing Heroes, Comics Interview that David Anthony Kraft did. I blew it, man. I could have talked to David before he passed. And I'm so mad because truly those are the inspirations for Word Balloon. And the people that understand what I'm doing, it's those magazines represent what was on the minds of the creators and editors at that moment. And like you said it about Overstreet, but it's true about all these publications.
Yes.
They are a time capsule. And my feeling is, and I've said this before on the show, every fart since the camcorder was invented has been documented. So from the 90s and maybe mid 90s and on, there's a record for everything. And then everything else is speculation. And Wikipedia, and honestly, I won't name names, but there are some podcasters out there that gloss over the facts. And it's like, no, man, you got to dig. You got to know what
you're going to have to tell me who you're talking about after we're done.
Off the air.
Yes.
I don't want to be rude on the air, but it drives me nuts. And it's like, no, you're wrong. Now I'm blanking. Daredevil #1, drawn by Bill Everett.
Yes,
Bill Everett. I heard a podcast, and I won't name the podcast, but they're like, Bill Everett really didn't do much of at Marvel after Daredevil. Wrong. How about the Doom Namor book? Was it Supervillain?
Exactly. No, exactly. Supervillain Team Up.
Yeah,
and he would go back, and also he would ink all manner.
Because Stan loved him.
Yeah,
Stan loved him, and would give him shots.
Yes. No, no, John. So this could be something we do. Like my whole thing, and I've gone 3 years now. No one has challenged the facts that I have shared because they are facts.
I'm with you.
I bring the receipts. I sat on my Heroes Reborn, all those legal back and forths. I figured it's 2 decades later, more than that. I can share this stuff now. These regimes aren't here.
Right.
They're semi-inflammatory to the people who are there. It was a crazy time for the business. People acted insane. And it's time to share this stuff. And I'm reading to you from facts. And again, like this notion, I'll tell you right now, like it's just funny because a couple of the Image guys called me up and said, "Wow, we didn't know this." And I'm like, "Yeah, of course you didn't."
Wait a minute. These are guys that were involved in Heroes Reborn that didn't know what was happening, or were these
no.
the Image guys that were not in?
What I'm about to tell you,
excuse me,
is when I was leaving Image Comics, and it's signed by Todd. It's in his. I have the letter, and it's, "Dear Rob, if you do not put your books back at Image and remove them from Maximum Press, I will have to instigate action against you. I strongly urge for you to put your books back." And I said, that's not happening. And that email, that letter to me is in March of, and what are you writing me about? That I took my books. I left. I have left. I have put Youngblood and Supreme and Glory and Prophet in my Maximum Press label. I created a separate label that was run separately through Diamond, paid separately, and I had decided that I would start, and I knew that by putting Youngblood in, I walked people through. An ad in Diamond does not just appear the day before it lands. That had to be sent in a month earlier, and the ad had to be created a few weeks prior to that. So just start counting back minimum 2 months. Then you have it in your hands, and that product is advertising something that's going to come out 3 months from then. So this really has a 5-month gestation period, and you're on the clock 2 months in by the time you see it in Diamond, in the catalog. And so again, this notion that, well, Rob didn't leave. I'm not sure how you can say I didn't leave when you're begging me to stay in this stationery that you wrote and signed in ballpoint pen. Okay. And here it is. And I'm reading it. And there you go. And it's like, did you really think I was going to keep this shit? And so it's like, there's stuff. And John, the other great thing, I think the thing that I've enjoyed the most, and my friends have called me up and they said that, Rob, the thing I like about you and your podcast the most is finally people are knowing you the way I've known you for 20 years. That's the Rob I hear on the telephone all the time. And so it's just a way, because I see how people mimic me. And everyone makes anything I say as if I'm saying it angrily. I tweeted out 2 weeks ago, just because I thought people should know, like, it's something maybe that will alter, maybe change your expectations, and I believe in lowering expectations, not heightening them. I said, hey, just so you know, Deadpool 3 is maybe more of a Wolverine movie than it is a Deadpool movie. And then one of the major film sites said, I read your tweet. How upset are you? I said, upset? How did you get that I was upset? I didn't say anything other than, just so you know, the Deadpool 3 is way more of a Wolverine movie than you may expect, or just way more of a, but you've assigned anger to me as if I said that Deadpool 3 is more of a Wolverine movie. Ah! No. I just told you, like, isn't this interesting? Like, that, isn't this something like maybe you would find interesting?
Sure.
And if you're somebody who's on record as his favorite character of all time is Wolverine, maybe the guy tweeting it to you is kind of excited too. But immediately I was assigned to a very passive piece of information in a tweet. It was made that I must be angry. And I'm like,
I'm looking at.
And I literally said to the guy, I go, dude, I don't care if Deadpool is running around in the background. Like, it'll be Deadpool back on screen, and that'll be great. That doesn't like that doesn't matter to me. What I'm telling you is this might be more of a Wolverine movie than you are expecting. And whoa, does this make? I read your tweet. How angry are you? Angry? Like, it's just, so the thing about the podcast, people can just, that's how I talk. Like, this is just how I process information, and nothing is more, I think, precious to me outside of my family than comic books. And hopefully you've picked that up if you've listened. So like you and your podcast, I just want to share comic book stuff, because that's what I celebrate the most. And it's niche. It's niche, but it's the niche that I love. So
I'm with you, man.
I'll let you get back to asking me a question or whatever.
Well, I'll just point out again, this is the guy who put Wolverine very prominently in Battered Blood, the sequel.
Right.
So let's not
right.
not forget that. Hold on 1 second. Let's see here. What else have we got here for questions? Oh, this is nice. People are tipping without asking questions, which
Good.
is really nice. You know, and listen, everybody. Again, I don't mean I'm not trying to be a jag, because I know for a long time I did allow just questions and stuff, gathering the audience. But you know, yeah, times are tough, man. So if you can help me out,
times are tough out there in the arts. Help John out.
If you do have good questions in the chat, but yeah, if you would even $1.50. I mean, it doesn't have to be, you know, anything like amazing as far as money and stuff. So
if I had anything in this bank, okay,
you're a good man, Rob.
I would. Come on. Deadpool says, "Don't be a cheap ass mofo." Tip, John. Okay.
You're killing me, man.
Yeah.
No, as I said, I've really been enjoying all the things you bring up. How are things with you and Todd now? Are you guys okay? Or
people, you know what? I love Todd. I just have nothing but tremendous affection for him. But when I imitate him sometimes, so I do a live stream.
Oh, no, yeah.
No, I do a live stream call on a app called Whatnot, where I share exclusive comics variants. It's a great marketplace. I love it. And occasionally I will imitate. Todd has, and maybe I have one too, I'm not sure, but Todd has a hardcore cult. And if I've encountered them. They'll go, like, here's if after that imitation I just gave to you, I don't know what you're trying to do, man. Todd's the greatest of all time. Who are you to talk that way about him? I'm like, oh, you have no sense of humor. Okay.
I'm happy.
And I immediately, there's a blocking mechanism, and I block them and they're gone. There are, you know, and more power to him. You know, he cultivated that in these market reports. In 1990, there is no single bigger force in the comic world than Spider-Man #1. Every retailer here talks about all of the volume that they sold of Todd's Spider-Man. And it is 1 year after the 1989 summer of Batman, and Batman is cooled. They all talk about the fact that the Batman heat has subsided, and it is all on Spider-Man. And what they're saying is a movie came and went, but a comic book artist by a comic book creator has generated all this heat. I love Todd. I have constantly, I believe he should have a special accommodation for what he's done in toys more than comics, because
Agreed.
Todd changed action figure articulation, sculpting, and he broke it down for us. And he told us very early on when he was starting how he was going to do it. And he would literally say to me, Rob, this is a difference of 5 cents a toy, but it's 5 cents a toy that Mattel isn't willing to do. Because an accountant told them that 5 cents an action figure times hundreds of thousands of action figures is way too expensive. And I'm like, I can do 5 cents. And, you know, what he did, and literally, you know, Todd never had like an Extreme Studio or a Wildstorm or a Top Cow, but he had all of the different sculptors that came through his system. And so many of them spun off into their own toy companies. Like, they learned toys from Todd, and they got contacts that they made through Todd, and they became competitors of Todd. And I think that's happened like at least 5 times. And so, no, I think Todd is, there is some real genius in what he does. Now, when I get in trouble is when I tell people how much I miss the fact that Todd doesn't draw comics and hasn't drawn a comic book in 25 years.
Sure.
That truly bums me out.
Sure.
Because right behind me there's a lower shelf behind me that you can't see, but it has the Todd's omnibus of Spider-Man. And,
Beautiful.
You know, like, there's a guy, we call him Bergie. He's in, you'll see his, he's called Ramita Man with his original art, Mike Bergie. And he will tell you, I had a long discussion with him because, and again, I do not hold John Romita Sr.'s Spider-Man in any special accommodation. I think it's nice. I think it's great. There's certainly nothing to criticize about it, but to a generation, he is the guy, and they will die on that hill. And you don't call yourself Romita Man without being that guy. And so we have fun conversations. And he's like,
of course,
you really don't love Romita Sr.? I don't. I think it's great. I understand that he became, the style guide for Spider-Man for almost 20 years. But
yeah.
Ditko and Todd, like Steve Ditko is my favorite Spider-Man ever. You don't get anywhere without him. And he has that creepiness to him.
Yes.
The Romita Sr., I see why it went over so well, because it's a more homogenized, cleaned up version.
Yeah, it's prettier. Yeah.
It's prettier. It's less creepy and weird.
Sure.
But people, the reason I kind of laid this groundwork is unless you were there, you don't know how Todd revitalized Spider-Man, right? Like,
agreed.
It was the books, the X-Men books, the Batman books, those were the talk of comics. And then Todd McFarlane comes along. The Spider-Man books were just kind of taken for granted. They were still among Marvel's bestsellers, but it was the X-Men's time. And then Todd McFarlane comes in, and his Spider-Man is so definitive to this day. Those comics are incredible. And the great thing about Todd, which it's the echo of Ditko. You don't get those characters without Ditko. And the reason I have so much praise for Ditko is because he did give us, and I can go down all those rabbit holes. Maybe he gave us a lot more, but at the very least, he gave us the visual representation. And I believe he gave us so much more than that. But the visual representation of the Lizard, Mysterio, Kraven, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, you name it, right?
Yeah, sure.
And Todd's version of all those characters back then, you were like, oh, I hope Todd draws Mysterio next issue. I can't wait to see how Todd McFarlane draws, because he had our attention. He had our full attention. So no, I love him. We gave a nice hug last San Diego. Unexpectedly, he was walking outside the convention center, and so was I.
Yeah, that's great.
And I didn't travel with any handlers, but he had his handlers. And so the next thing I knew, there was 5 different angles of us hugging online because they all took a picture. But no, look, I wish him nothing but the best. I love him. My collaborations with him are fantastic. But I am not above busting his balls. Okay.
Yeah, of course you guys are friends.
No one is above. He was a very important figure in my life for a very long time. I would just say anybody who works with him, around him, or if you're a fan of him and you approach with this sensitivity where like, oh my gosh, we only have to talk about him in terms of like deification.
Reverential. Yeah.
I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that with anybody. I went to Jack Kirby's house. I had dinner with the Kirbys. I hung out with the Kirbys. I stayed up late with the Kirbys. I went repeatedly and visited them. And if I stood in the presence of the God of comic books and he was the coolest guy I ever met, then maybe you can be cool too, So
I'm with you, man. Mentioning Romita, I don't know if you ever watched when you were a kid, because in my teen years, I watched All My Children, the soap opera.
Okay.
And there was an actor on there, Michael E. Knight.
Okay.
And
I know Michael.
Okay. Facially, that's a Romita Peter Parker.
Yeah, I see it. Yes.
And really for years, I'm like, man, if they ever make a Spider-Man movie, Michael Knight should definitely play Peter Parker.
Look, the kind of stuff that I like, a harder edged, maybe perhaps an angrier, and again, so just in case anyone's listening, John Romita Jr. draws extremely pretty. He draws just beautiful people, figures. He's the whole package. We went, my friend surprised me 2 years ago. I kept the shirt. I'm like, I don't understand what we're going to. And they wouldn't tell me, but there's a local theater here in town. And that weekend, they were doing a live reading with all voice actors of the first Kingpin issues. The 3 issues where he gives up his suit, where Peter Parker throws his suit in the trash can, and that's all Kingpin stuff.
Classic.
And they did a live reading. They had 9 different voice actors. They had all the special effects. They had all of the panels on screen.
Oh, fun. Sure.
in the middle, in the intermission, this older guy, older than you and I, long kind of Santa Claus beard, comes out, sees that I've got the shirts. I bought the shirts, the Spider Mania, whatever that weekend shirts. And I mean, it was packed out. It was a Saturday night. You know, they had another day of shows after, but he said the Friday nights were sold out, the Saturday nights were sold out. And he's like, you know, there's no better artist ever than John Romita Sr. He didn't know who the hell I was. So my friends who brought me said, hey, this is our friend Rob and his wife Joy. And I said, hey, this is really great. Thank you for doing this. This is so fun. And it's like, oh, well, you know, the greatest Spider-Man artist of all time. I mean, there's nobody comes close is John Romita Sr., man. And we got that artist edition from IDW. And, you know, that's where I got some of these images to make the shirt. And you know, just there's no greater. And I'm like, I'm a Ditko loyalist. And I'm like, don't push me. Don't. I'm like, Rob, you can't get in a fight with the guy that puts on the Spider-Man show. Just appreciate it. Take his love of Romita Sr., swallow it, and move on. But I'm like, he just wanted me to know that nobody ever. And I'm like, boy, Mike Berkey and you would get along famously. I wanted to say, do you know Romita, man? Yeah, no, look, I appreciate everybody's contributions, but you know,
yeah.
Look, John, I'm going to tell you, I grew up. I've said this on my show. I've written articles about it. I've written a Facebook about it, and really, I drew strength from this in my career because the funny thing is, in these market reports, man, for 3 years straight, it's what I told, because my kids sometimes said when they came of age, just when they were like 16, 17, 18, that age, they'd say, Dad, why are you so controversial? Social media showed us like what? And I said, kids, let me tell you, for a decade, everything I touched turned to gold. Everything. Everything I touched. And then the perception was, it wasn't the truth, but the perception became that everything your dad touched turned to poop. And I don't know what happened, but it just happened. And then, you know, I refused to buy into that at all and kept the course. And it just kind of went away. But there are some people who don't want to let it go, and they want to keep drudging it up, and they don't want that. They want that version to be the definitive version of me. And look, I said, it's no different than an athlete that comes into your hometown playing your team. You're going to boo him.
Sure.
And I've got my detractors. And I said, but, and this is why I'm queuing this up, because I kid you not. And I've mentioned those 2 weekends that I was in New York in 89 and in 88 and 89, one for DC and one for Marvel. People would say to me, who's your favorite artist? And I'd list my top 3. And when I said George Perez, peers, I won't name them, just like you won't name the podcaster that you spoke of.
No, not publicly.
Very well known, and I won't do it here publicly either. Very well known illustrators in the business went literally. Oh no! Get out of here! Come on! No.
About George?
Yes.
Wow.
And he said, you know, he doesn't draw this well, and he doesn't do this, and he draws a lot of panels to cover up for this. And I'm like, no. In my head, I'm like, no. And in my head, I'm like, I like him way more than you, but okay. And then I remember, you know, I would go to my first show, and I'm like, and somebody said, another guy who was at the show, he was kind of new too, and he's like, so you're really into George Perez, huh? I'm like, yeah. How do you know? He goes, I can see it in your work, and oh man, you know, you could do way better. And I'm like, no. And what I'm saying is, this is the George Perez of the best-selling Crisis on Infinite Earths. This is the George Perez of the best-selling Teen Titans. But within his group, his peers, I was advised that I was letting them down because, oh man, he doesn't do this, and I'm like, well, all I know is when he puts lines on paper, I love it. And look, George, in the 90s, he really kind of disappeared for a while. Like literally from 92 to like 96, maybe the Ultraverse stuff. But then he really comes back on the Heroes Return stuff.
Yep.
And gets his like really big 3rd or 4th chapter. But I'm not saying this. Look, the George Perez I knew was one of the best-selling artists of all time. But during that time, there's actors and directors and music acts. I could sit down with different family members and and Have or Joy's sisters, and they're like, oh, I can't stand that actor. Or everyone has their favorite. And if your favorite doesn't line up, or they see your guy in a certain light. And I remember, look, I'll talk about this honestly, because it's in print. There's a comics journal, 1980, John Byrne. He's at a table with a bunch of peers. Terry Austin was one of them. John Byrne takes shots at Jim Starlin, Marv Wolfman. These are in print. They're there. Bob Layton. So Jim Starlin, Marv Wolfman, Bob Layton. There's somebody I'm missing, but he has a special section where he goes after George and makes fun of George. Wow. And I sit there, and he even does a picture where he says, this is a picture. There's a photo in the comics journal, a black and white photo of John Byrne. That's it. I just did it, except with John Byrne's face. And it says John Byrne acting out a George Perez character having a disagreement. And it's like George, what John's trying to say is that George was over the top, right? And as a kid, I'm like, man, he's taking shots, but what is, let's put that in sports terms. That's Larry Bird taking shots at Magic Johnson.
Okay.
That's, I think John, because I've talked about it on my podcast. There was a weekend that I was George's valet, picked him up at the airport, took him to the show, took him out to dinner. He wanted me to make copies. I made copies. My first-hand witness to this is a gentleman named Hank Canals, who went on to be
Hank, of course,
an executive at DC Comics. We were best friends.
Clover Press, absolutely. I love Hank.
Okay. So we are catering to George the entire weekend, and George would tell us the people he was competitive with, and he would talk openly about the competition he had his entire career with John Byrne. One of my earliest podcast episodes was the rivalry that defined an era, and it is Byrne versus Perez.
Yes.
And if you brought up John Byrne to George Perez at a convention in 1982, he would talk to you about him. They were competitors. So what I'm trying to say is I always saw how George heard that too. George heard what I heard. Everybody who's successful, you feel the darts that are thrown your way.
Sure.
And George was also a gregarious, beloved soul as well.
Absolutely.
I have a lot more. I am more of a porcupine, and he was a teddy bear. My quills will sting you. George had no quills, but George was aware of, I literally would be in the apartments of people inking George, saying, "Oh man, really?" And I'm like, "What is with all you people?" Like, I wanted to go, like, without George, DC is folding up its offices. Like, he kept the lights on here for 5 years. Like,
yeah.
But it was like, and I also think George always, because he heard that stuff, it pushed him to be better and better and better. So in my career, I remember like all of those people that advised me, the better artists who couldn't sell half of what he sold, telling me, "Oh man, really? You can do so much better than George as an inspiration, or George as an influence, or really, he's your favorite." And I'm like, "Yeah, can you get used to it? Like, what? Can we not make this an issue?" First thing I did getting off the plane was drive to the comic store and get the new George Perez comic. But the whole thing illustrates. I saw you just go. You're going to encounter resistance to your work.
Yes,
and it's all how if you let those voices. And I'm going to tell you, in the course of this interview, you've mentioned people who I've encountered who've said, "Rob, I've encountered like criticism of my work. I see that you handle it really well. Can you help me?" And John, these people are freaking out. They are. And I'm like, "Dude, what are you talking about? Your books really sell really well." "Yeah, but the press has turned on me. The readers have turned on me." I'm like, "Stop dwelling on the negative. Focus on the positive and just keep moving. Just do what you do." Yep. So, it's like I said, I've just learned so much in my time in the industry, and I'm so grateful that I met the people I did at the time that I did, and established, those relationships, and saw how they navigated their difficult periods. Or maybe, what I'm really getting at is what I didn't, the word I haven't said is all of those people who said that there was envy and jealousy.
It's in their head, Rob. Absolutely, man.
But they were jealous of the success that somebody like George had, and I did not give you one single name, but I was overwhelmed. Like, wow! Like,
I know.
There are. You're going to get into the business, and you're going to have people. And so again, this started with like the Ramita fans are never going to tell you that Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man is their favorite, and then there's an entire generation that will kill you if you suggest otherwise, right? That Todd is not the greatest.
Right.
So, and that's what makes comics fun. And that was a long tangent. And I'm going to take another breath. And
all right, while you do that,
10 more minutes. 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes is great. I'm going to tell you something, Rob, and I hope you're taking this the right way, because I was there at a Wizard Chicago where somebody tried to shame you.
That's right. That's right.
And I felt so, and I didn't even know. I came right after the guy, and you're like, dude, yeah, not right now. And I'm like, okay, no problem. And then I found out, but you know what was awesome, Rob? Much like what you're saying about George,
right.
I was really impressed because there were people that aren't your biggest fans in the business and are your friends. And universally on social media, I saw all of those people when that guy tried to post that video saying, hey, fuck you. Nobody deserves that. And Rob, I may not like Rob, but he doesn't deserve that. And I thought it was awesome, Rob, because really.
It was not. No, I was very touched by it. And I think that's 2009. And
it was 2009. Good memory.
We called that the yellow hat guy.
Yes.
And just so for your people who are listening, to put it in perspective, they had given Jim Valentino and I very prominent table space at that Wizard World, pretty close to when you come in the hall.
Yeah.
And so Marat Michaels, who was my buddy and my drew a million comic books with me at Extreme, and it started out as my assistant and now doing his own thing. We were tabled together. And what you don't understand, we're very is the word susceptible. We're very, we're in a table in an aisle, very open. You can touch us, knife us, shoot us. We're down drawing. Marat and I are facing down doing our commissions. And it was the table shook, and a giant, the loudest, like a hardcover book. Now, ironically, here's the deal. It was a version of this. It was an edition. Yes. And it was slammed on the table, like slammed to the point where it upset us. Both Marat and I looked up, and all I could see was a guy disappearing into the aisle. Like he ran away. And so it was in a plastic bag. And to this day, this is inside baseball. Marat knows word for word. Marat goes, "Did you see that?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I have no doubt we're being watched. Just keep your head down and keep drawing. Let's not give this person the satisfaction that they want, but there is something on our table. So let's just." And I did hear, as the guy ran away, there was a very loud Liefeld sucks. And so, but in that moment, John, I'm like, I am not going to give this guy what he wants. And that takes some focus to go, something just struck our table and it startled us. And Marat and I are like, what the heck? And literally, I am pivoting to Marat, who is looking right at me. And I said, don't look up. Don't give this guy the time of day. We're just going to keep moving. And it was a good several minutes until I would look up, and we removed it and put it down. And then Marat opened it and showed me what it was. And it had a very rude note in it. And then you approached right after that. And the thing was, John, it's like, I'm trying to make sense of what just happened, right?
Totally, Rob. Absolutely.
Because at that point, so 2009, I've been in the business almost 20. I've been in the business 21 years at that point. I had never encountered anything like that. And then it was the dawn of like the internet, and again,
right.
I knew someone was filming us. I thought we were being watched
on their phone. Yeah.
And so they couldn't get our reaction. We didn't,
right.
At that moment, John, my entire mission was, I am not going to give this person the reaction they want.
I know. That's cool.
And so then the guy went out and made a video
Yep.
where he showed the book and they followed him and they videoed him doing it. I didn't know that until I got back to my hotel room.
Sure.
But you're right. And John, there were two names exactly that Monday night. I get back from the show. I know where I am with my laptop in my den. And I was very touched. There are writers who were not fans of mine who said exactly what you said. And it showed me like we are a community.
Absolutely, man.
We will rally around each other. And, you know, I always say whatever is doing well in comics, whether you did it or I did it, is good for everybody. Whoever does it, it's good for everybody. It's like a rising tide, right?
Yes.
And, you know, so I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad it's been that long. The
14 years, man.
The funny thing is, shortly after, I think maybe that Tuesday night, somebody wanted me to go on a podcast with him. And I got on it, and he was humiliated and apologized and said, I wasn't thinking that through. And I was like, I wasn't in the best of moods. And I said, look, man, you're just saying this because you got shamed and this backfired, but your intent was terrible. And I'm not sure you've reconciled, but you're just upset that this did not go your way. And, you know, I'm very fortunate. But John, in that moment, like I literally, you just know we're being set up, we're being pranked.
Yeah.
And let's not overreact. We're not going to give this guy anything that he wants. And I to this day, it was like one of those just immediate instincts that I was so happy that we kept ourselves together, Murat and I, and it was great.
Dude, I'm telling you, no. And again, the response from the community was just fantastic.
You're great. The comic community is fantastic. We are a great community.
Every conversation just like this one, Rob, you are always positive, and it's like, no, man, you're a cheerleader for the biz, and it's good. I mean, you're one of those guys that should be like, hey, isn't it great we get to do this and we get to enjoy this both as pros and as fans? I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about you guys, and it's the truth. It's like, yeah, man, like you said, the tide raises all the boats.
So I'm gonna tell you one thing, and as we kind of get, we can do probably one more after this, but
sure.
Quick. Last week, so there's a brand new ice cream place down the street that's all the buzz. It's called Handles, and my daughter is back with us for the summer. Mr. Terribly, she's my youngest and my oldest. She's my youngest child, my only daughter, and I just love her. I love her energy, and so just she and I went and grabbed some ice cream, and we drove back into the parking lot and said, oh, this was so fun, Dad. And I said, Livy, I was giving her like some encouragement for whatever kind of the direction of what we were discussing in terms of kind of her goals and stuff. And I said, Livy, let me tell you something. One of the great humbling things of my life every day is, Olivia, I am sending you to college with right here. I make comic books. I was like, you know, I'm sure you've grown up. I'm sitting on a beanbag. I'm sitting on the couch. My head's down and I'm drawing all the time. But Livy, drawing comics has put all of you through school. It's bought all your cars. It's bought our insurance, you know, house. And John, I'm literally like, how could I not be excited and thankful all the time? I pulled comics off a spinner rack that resembles that. I knew pretty quickly that's all I wanted to do in life was make those. And through some hurdles and some discouragement of teachers, and you can't make money at comics, you can't make a living. Oh man. And just stand the course. And then, you know, again, the first time I knew like we were onto something was when somebody, again, I love John Byrne, and people have said, how do you reconcile with the fact that the guy that you worship can't stand you? I go, that's never been anything but that. And John Byrne immediately, when it came to the Image guys, said, oh, those guys are all about money. They got into comics for money. I'm like, what comic book was making money that we were drawn to, John? Please show me how we were sitting at home scheming. Oh, I'm going to get into comic books and get rich. No. Everybody that I had met in comics, from Dave Cockrum to Paul Smith to George Perez to Frank Miller, they were just guys that I understood were sitting at their boards making their dreams come true the same way I wanted. And so it is my lifelong dream. And that's why, I do, my whole thing is I try and put out 100 pages a year for the last decade. And I'm going to be 56 in October. And I'm hoping I have another decade in me, that the eyes can work, the hand works. Because I just want to make comics. That's all I want to do, and talk about comics. And so I'm so truly blessed, humbled, just completely floored that this is what I get to do on a daily basis. So when you sense that enthusiasm from me, and now I'm like, wait, people are listening to me on a podcast talk about comics? This is rad. Okay. So more comics all the time. And John, again, what you do is so amazing.
Oh,
thank you for giving everybody a forum like this to come and have diarrhea of the mouth like I have tonight.
No, it's all good. All right, two comments of praise as we wrap up.
Okay.
Wesley Jones says, no question, X-Force meant the world to me as a teen. Awesome comics, broke my heart when it ended. Just happy to hear from the man behind it. So that's a nice comment.
Thank you so much.
And Dennis said, I don't think I got all of this. He's like, love your podcast episodes on Fighting American and Heroes Reborn. Ended up reading those Fighting American comic books and loved them. He's excited for more comics from you. We need more. Again, another guy saying we need more Prophet comics.
Yes. Oh, you're going to get them. You're going to get them.
Absolutely.
Like, it's just, I like literally, I have just been, as I get older, it's harder to focus. I have to focus because I have to get these books out, and the pages don't draw themselves. And I draw on paper, and I tape my double page spreads together. And I know that I'm not alone. There are a lot of guys out there who are working on boards and
sure.
The younger you go, though, the less that is the case. But the thing is that that I am definitely, like, the only reason people saw those Prophet pages is because I showed them on social media. And whether it's Brigade or Bloodstrike or Evangeline or Prophet, I've been noodling away at all of these different stories. And I am going to, like, every year, it's next year. I'm going to do it next year, but I'm running out of next year's. So it's going to have to be soon. And I'm going to bring, because it'll probably be the last time I do this big hurrah with my characters. Because if I don't have them, like, it's just, what we did at Image was an incredible, and again, boy, there's a what if. Marvel should do what if social media had been around when they tried to form Image, because I am on the record. I know of 2 people who would not have come. They were already on. They were waffling.
Wow.
And had the voice, had the voices, made themselves known. Had the public. Look, we were signing Dan Frega, Marat Michaels, all the guys, Norm Ratman at Extreme at the time.
Yeah.
We did the first Extreme tour in New York at Jim Hanley's. And there was a guy that waited 4 hours in line and when he waited to when he finally got up in front of me, he had wadded up a comic book and he threw it in my face. And he said, "Fuck you for leaving Marvel. Fuck you. You fucking ruined the X-Men by leaving. I fucking hate you." And they escorted him out.
Wow.
And look, there were people who were mad at us.
Sure.
They only wanted the Marvel versions of us.
Yep.
And I certainly wasn't expecting it. And wadding up a comic book and throwing it at me, it was a very soft landing. But it was like startling again. And you go, wow. But given social media, do you really believe that some of these people would not have been reached by, "No, don't leave this book. No." And that person who was waffling would have never, ever, based on everything I know at the time and how hard it was for them to cross, they would have never crossed. An Image would look a lot different. It would look a lot different. But for me, creating these characters, even though I don't dine out on them often, they are the bedrock of everything. They gave me all my freedom, right? So that's all I'll say. And there will be more of them, I assure you. I know you're tired of me assuring you people, but it's going to happen.
No, that's great to hear, Rob. And honestly, we all understand. And I am glad that things are good at Marvel and we're getting this wonderful Batter Blood Deadpool sequel that drops tomorrow.
Yes.
And we get Robservations at least weekly, if not a couple times a week.
Yes, thank you. And yes, Deadpool Batter Blood. Please, I hope you reserved your copy. The more I have visited comic stores in 2023, so many of them rely on pull lists and subscriptions, and there's just not a lot on the shelf. Your retailer doesn't have room to carry extras, and I was shocked. I got to be honest. I didn't know until I got this comic that's $5. Now, do I think I gave you $5 bang for your buck? 24 pages. I did. I do. Marvel printed this on the nicer paper. It's on a nicer stock. You wouldn't know that if you saw it digitally, but it's on a thicker stock. It's really nice, but it's $5. So your retailer, we got, they couldn't take a giant position. It's hard out there for retailers right now, just like it's hard out there in the arts. And so if you buy Deadpool Batter Blood, thank you so much. And I want to tell anybody who is listening in Southern California, I will be my only appearance of 2023. I have not been out in a year, but I'm going out. It's Tustin Tunes and Toys. It's also called Comics TNT. That's their Instagram handle and their Twitter. But Tustin Tunes and Toys in Tustin, in the city of Tustin. I will sign this for free Saturday. Come see me. I just want to get it in your hands. You buy it from the store. You stand in line. You give it to me. I'm signing it for free. That is our transaction, free. Okay. So that's my personal appearance. I just want to, do what I can locally. I really literally I'm chained to my table because I've got so many pages I have to do. So I can get out and make this one appearance. Come and see me. Listen to my podcast, Robservations. Look it up. If you love comics, I hope you'll give it a shot. I don't know how it'll land with you, but give it a shot. Thank you for supporting my work, everybody. Every single one of you, thank you for supporting my work.
Rob, thank you for coming back because I always love these conversations, and you did it again. You exceeded expectations.
John, you're so good to me.
And off the air, real quick, I hope we could talk about Winning Time, the HBO Lakers.
Show. Let's book another session in August for issue 3. I want to revisit.
Please, that'd be great, Rob.
Deadpool Batter Blood number 3 is my favorite thing I have ever done. It reads fantastic. I'll say this, it's the most comic book I've ever made. It is so much fun. It looks beautiful. I proofed all the colors last week with my beautiful color artist, Jay Ramos. Chad Bowers crushed it on the script. And we love Chad and Mark Basso, my editor, and everybody at Marvel. So good to me. And so I'll come back in August and we'll talk it up.
That sounds great, man. Well, you're only going to give me more numbers as far as viewers and listeners. Thank you so much, Rob. It's always
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me, buddy. Thank you, everybody who listened. Thank you so much.
And thank you, everybody. Great questions. Thank you for the tips. And tomorrow night, Steve Siegel going to join us, one of the men of action. We're going to talk Sandman Mystery Theater and Superman and a whole lot more. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's tomorrow night here on Word Balloon Live. Until then, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.